All right, I think the problem was a version conflict between Antisign and React Next.JS. When using the Next.js, the 14th version, it gives some conflicting errors. I saw that in Antisign documentation. When I was setting up the project, I explicitly wrote the version. I think Next.js somehow installed the 14 function anyway. So we just installed the 13.5.1 version of Next.js and it solved the problem. Okay. And we also changed the structure. So we are fetching the categories in our header component, and we'll just give the categories to category list component as props. So all right. Okay, let's go back and see if we face any errors. Okay, we're fine. Okay, so now our dropdown works, right? Okay, great. Let me close all the unnecessary folders, files. I do not need any of these. Uh, okay. Dark categories. All right. So before our category list, we have a categories folder. Let's wrap it up inside our categories folder. GRIES categories. All right. Uh, so now, okay. So it works. So if we want to we want to render all the initial categories inside our category list, right? So we are getting all of the categories inside category list as props. So we can just say that if categories and categories dot length not equals to 0, then we can render our categories, right? Okay. Uh, okay. Now we can give this class to the category list. Okay, now it should work. Categories. Okay. Okay, so if we go to our category list, we now we can set up that our main category, right? So the first level of categories. So first we want to render the category, the wrapper or the uh, div where the categories will be wrapped. So this wrapper, the main wrapper. Okay. So we can name it. Let's name it category main. Okay. So let's copy it, and inside our category list, we have our category main. Okay. So let's see what we are getting from our category props. Let's see categories. Okay. So we are getting an array. And we have our category name, our category image, and a slug. This slug is going to be we are going to use to go to a category page dynamically. So first we just need the name, right? So let's render the category list name first. So inside our category main, we can say categories dot map. Let's say category, and from here we are going to return a list item, and we have to give it a identifier key. We can say category dot id, because each of our category is coming with the underscore id from MongoDB. So we can do that, and inside that list, we can set up the list, right? So let's say link, ps Next.js link, because clicking on each link or each category name, it should take you to a new page. So we are going to use a name for, but for now we are going to set it up to our home page. So inside our link, we want to render, let's say, inside a p tag, we want to render our category name, right? So let's say category dot name. So I'm using optional chaining. So if there is any error, so if we do not get any data, our application doesn't give any error. Okay. So we have got our initial categories, right? So this is our initial categories. As you can see, we also have a button or a arrow for our categories that has children. So we're going to add that. I'm just going to copy that. Okay. So when do I want to show that arrow? I want to show that arrow if a category has a children, right? If a category doesn't has any children, I don't want to open the sidebar of that category, and I do not want to show that button. So how do you know that? If we go to our main application, you can see inside the children, if this category has any children category, it will be under the children array. So if the children array is empty, that means that category doesn't have any child category. So now we can say that category, that means this category dot children, dr, it is children or child. Let me check. Children. Okay. Children, if the length is not equals to 0, then we can render that. Okay, I have to put a, and then we can render that. So I have to import it from React icon. Okay. Okay, so let's see. All right. For some reason we are getting a arrow with every each of them. Category got children. Oh, sorry, my bad. I have to check the length. Length not equals to 0. Okay. Now it should work. Okay. So now we have this button for only the categories that has children. So now we have to style our category according to this. So I'm going to do that. So let's give it a, actually let's wrap the link component uh, in a div, and let's give it a name of div, and we want to name it link. Okay. All right. Mm, category. Okay. So let's give our category a border. Let's say a box shadow so that we can define the category. I think we're not getting it. Set category list. categories, category list. If we do this, okay, so now we got it. I think it was some syntax error. Okay. Okay, now we can see a shadow inserted, so we can understand that it is a category drop down. Okay, so now our drop down works. We have to work on our styling. So I'm just going to copy the CSS from our PPS file. Inside our get main, we have our link. Let's see the stack. We have our link, then we have our link class or the div with the link class. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up the link to flex, justify content space between, and align item center. And I am giving the tag that is the link component and Next.js link component that will actually render a tag or link tag. And then I'm giving the SPG or the arrow button a animation that if it is hover, the SVG will transform -90°. So if we go back to our UI, okay. So now the styling is applied. So I want to give each, let's see if hover works. Okay, so hover works too. All right. So now for our each link component, let's make it small again. Okay. So I can say that each link component should have a padding of 10 pixel by 20 pixel. Okay, now we have some space and we can say that we do not want any color, right? So we can say that color should be text black. Okay, I think we have to give the color to our a tag. Sorry. Color. Okay, now it works. So we have our simple animation and our initial categories are loaded, right? So now we also have our nested categories, right? So these are our main categories. We also have our nested categories. We have to render those. So for that, we can go to our category list. Let me close that. And then we can say that, okay, sorry. Okay, so this is our category, right? So this link is our category. Then after each category, we can take another div. So if it has any children prop, right? If it has any children, we are going to render those here. So we can say that we want to dynamically change the class name also, right? So we can, if you want to give it a dynamic class, we can say class name category, not categories, the single category dot, sorry, my bad, dot children dot length equals to, if it equals to 0, I do not want to show it, so I can say give it a class height, and then if the category children is length is not 0, I want to show the subcategory. So let's give it a name like subcat container. Okay. Okay, so inside that div, I want to check if it's the same thing. that if the category dot children dot length is greater than 0, and then I can map it, right? Dot map. Okay, then I can say subcategory, then map it again. So we are first we are rendering our main categories, and inside that, if we have any children categories, like we have in you can see on the first category that we have a children category. So if we have any children category, then we want to render the categories on the side. So now I'm mapping it again, and now I can say that I want to return a div, and I want to give it a class name. Let's say sub main get. Okay, I have to give it a key, right? So, so for each category, we are also getting a ID, right? So inside your children, we have the category, and those children will also have a ID from MongoDB. So we can just say subcat, we are naming it subcat, right? Subcat dot underscore ID. So okay. So inside that, we want to do the same thing. We want to render the link. Let's copy it from here, and let's name it subcat dot name. Okay, so now it is rendering rendering under the categories, right? We do not want to do that. We want to render those side by side, right? So let's go back to our UI again. Now, so we have named our class. So let's go back, and after link, we can say that our subcategory container will be position will be absolute, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, so now it has left the space, and we can say that on left it should go 100%. Okay, so now it is outside of our main categories, right? So now we have to give it, let's say, a border. Let's give it the same border, 1px solid. We can say border light. Okay, so now they have got border. We're going to handle all of this, don't worry. And then, okay, so all right. So then we can give it a background color white. Then we can say the width should be, let's give it a, let's say 40 VW. Like we want to give it the width of 40% of the viewport width. That means the width of the screen. And then we want to give it a display flex. So we want to render two subcategories side by side, and then we can say flex direction column and justify content space between and align items flex start. Okay. So if we want to, we also want to wrap the flexes, right? So let's say flex wrap. All right. Do we want to get the column? Okay. So let's also give it a height. So we can give it, let's say 360. Okay, so we got the height. Then we can say overflow auto. If it has any overflowing classes, we want to show them as overflow. And we can give it a padding of, let's say 15 pixel. And we also set it on top 0, like let's say top 0. Okay, so now it is in top 0. Okay. So if you see that we are only getting the t-shirt, pant, and Punjabi and jeans that is coming from men's fashion, and actually all of those are rendering behind the t-shirt, these component, the all the children from electronic devices. We are going to handle those later. Don't worry. So let's give it a border too. Border of 1 pixel, solid, border light. Okay. Then we can give it the same box shadow. Okay, great. And so initially, now that our style is done, initially we do not want to show this, right?